When you think of a gaming PC, you probably imagine a flashy RGB tower with a graphics card that costs more than your rent. But what if I told you I picked up an old office desktop for just 50 bucks? And I'm about to see if it can actually game in 2025. This PC was built for spreadsheets and Zoom calls, not for running Fortnite or GTA 5. It's rocking outdated parts, a laughably weak GPU, and barely enough storage for one modern game. But that's where the fun begins. Instead of tossing it in the trash, I'm going to push this potato PC to its absolute limits. Optimizing, tweaking, and testing it on real games year by year. Can a handful of budget upgrades turn it into a hidden gem, or will it collapse the second I boot up something demanding? It's the ultimate underdog challenge. By the end, we'll know if a $50 Office PC can really transform into a budget gaming hero, or if it's just a hopeless relic. From what I can tell, this little box is none other than a Dell Optiplex 7020, a classic office workhorse. Most of these machines spent their lives crunching numbers in Excel, typing up Word docs, hardly the stuff of gaming glory. I checked the label on the case, and sure enough, it matches perfectly with the one I just picked up. Inside, it's rocking an Intel Core i3-4130, integrated graphics, 8GB of DDR3 RAM, and a 240GB SSD. But here's the real question. Does this thing even power on? And if it does, can this humble office rig actually pull off some gaming magic? Let's boot it up and find out exactly what we're working with. On the very first boot, the CPU fan spun up, but the screen stayed completely black, and even the keyboard wouldn't light up. My first guess? A RAM issue. The RAM here is made up of two 4GB DDR, 3 sticks running at 1600 MHz. So I pulled out the sticks, gave them a quick clean, and decided to test again. And guess what? My prediction was spot on. And sure enough, when I tried booting with just a single stick installed, the PC finally woke up from its long coma. The machine booted into Windows and ran just fine. To double check, I popped in the second RAM stick, half expecting it to be dead. But to my surprise, both sticks were fully functional. But it wasn't all good news. Our SSD seemed a little sketchy. My hunch was that the current Windows install was corrupted, which meant we'd probably need to reinstall the OS. For now though, I swapped in a drive that already had Windows and a few games installed just to test the setup. With the system finally alive, I fired up CPU-Z to get a closer look at the specs. An Intel Core i3-4130, 2 cores and 4 threads, running at 3.4 GHz. The motherboard, as expected, is Dell-made from 2014, and the memory confirms it. 8GB DDR3 dual-channel 1600 MHz. Alright, let's fire up a game real quick and see just how bad this PC struggles right now. So you'll really notice the difference once we start upgrading it. Running Fortnite on the lowest settings with the core, i3-4130 shows just how limited this chip really is. The CPU is pinned at 100% utilization, meaning it's completely maxed out the entire time. That bottleneck leaves no headroom for background tasks and creates noticeable stuttering. Frame rates hover around 30 FPS in normal movement, which is technically playable but far from smooth. The bigger problem is consistency. As soon as you start gliding from the bus or get into a firefight, FPS can nosedive into the 20s or even the low teens. That kind of drop makes aiming and building extremely difficult. Overall, while the system can boot Fortnite and run it at a basic level, the experience is choppy and unreliable due to the overwhelmed CPU. Alright, I think we've tortured this poor CPU enough. It's been sweating at 100% the whole time, and honestly, it deserves a break. So let's stop bullying the i3 and finally get down to business. Time for that upgrade. For anyone who doesn't know, this machine was born and branded as a plain old office PC. And yeah, that makes sense. The specs are pretty modest, built for spreadsheets and emails, not gaming. But here's the thing. That might have been true in its past life, but not here. Today, I'm stripping away that boring Office PC label and giving it a brand new title. A budget gaming PC. No more just Word and Excel. This thing's about to chase frames. So stick around as I take you through the upgrade process step by step. And hey, if you're enjoying the video so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps out a ton. First up, I wanted to give this rig a fresh new look with a proper case. Something that actually looks like a gaming PC. The only thing holding me back was the size of the motherboard. Since it's a pre-built office machine, I wasn't sure if the board would even fit into most modern cases. After digging through the few scraps of info I could find on eBay, I finally figured it out. The board is a Micro ATX. That instantly gave me an idea. I've always liked those aquarium-style cases with 3 glass panels, so I decided to go with the Sigmatech Ocean M Nano EN45400, which supports Micro ATX perfectly. Now, about the power supply, this thing came with a bulky, extra-long OEM unit. And I already knew it wasn't going to fit inside the new case. On top of that, it's only rated at 250 watts, which is nowhere near enough to handle a dedicated graphics card once I install one. Luckily, I've got a 600-watt PSU on hand, so I'm swapping out the old 250-watt brick and dropping this one in instead. That way, the system will actually have the power it needs for the upgrades we're about to throw at it. When it comes to cooling, here's a quick tip for anyone trying the same build. You're going to need a proper mounting bracket for the stock cooler. In the original case, the cooler was screwed directly into the chassis, but with a new case. That's not an option. So make sure you pick up one of these brackets. It's the only way you'll be able to secure the cooler properly. Another really important piece you'll need is a 24-pin to 8-pin power adapter. Without it, you won't be able to deliver power to the motherboard. The good news is these adapters are easy to find. You can grab one on eBay or pretty much any online marketplace. To make this thing actually game ready, I'm dropping in a GTX 964GB. I think this card will really let the CPU stretch its legs and give us a much smoother experience. I decided to swap it out for an Intel Xeon E31241V3, and that single upgrade completely transformed the experience. With 4 cores and 8 threads, plus a much higher clock speed, the Xeon brings this machine to an entirely new level. Suddenly, games feel smoother, multitasking isn't a nightmare, and the system finally has enough horsepower to keep up with the GTX 960. This was the core change that turned our $50 office PC into something that actually feels like a legit budget gaming rig. Give me a minute while I get all these parts installed. And after a bit of tinkering around, the build is finally complete. Now it's time to enjoy the payoff. But before we dive into performance testing, let's take a quick look at the finished build from the outside, because honestly, it looks way better than where we started. Man, after the upgrade, this thing feels like a totally different machine. The graphics card is chilling at about 85% load and 65 degrees Celsius, which is basically saying, I'm good, throw me whatever you want. The CPU though? That dude is absolutely sweating. 99% usage and running hot enough to fry an egg. The stock cooler just can't hang. It's like trying to cool down a race car with a desk fan. If we want this thing to last more than a few months, a better cooler is a must. Now let's talk gameplay. Before, we were crawling along at 20 to 30 frames per second, and every time a fight broke out or you jumped from the bus, the frames dipped so low you could practically count them by hand. It felt more like a slideshow than Fortnite. Now, we're cruising at a steady 80 to 90 frames per second, just running around. And even when things get hectic, skydiving or a full-on build battle, the worst dips are still around 50 to 60 FPS. That's not just playable, that's actually smooth enough to be competitive. So yeah, it's still running a little hot under the hood, but the difference is insane. From barely holding on for dear life to actually fun to play. Honestly, it's kind of wild what a few smart upgrades can do to an old office box. So after all the upgrades, this PC feels at least 10 times stronger than where we started. The performance boost is insane, and it completely changes the way games run on this setup. That said, if I really want this machine to stay stable and last longer, the next 2 things on the list are definitely RAM and a proper cooler. More memory will keep things smoother, and better cooling will stop the CPU from cooking itself every time we game. Also, this is my very first video, so if I made any mistakes along the way, I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments. If you want me to test another game in the next video, just let me know. Down in the comments. I'll do my best to make it happen. Thanks so much for sticking around till the end. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. It really helps a ton.